It's a child.
I'm here. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Don't apologize. You have a child. There's nothing to apologize.
Yeah,
More than one.
I do. And I am a child. So it's like my wife has 3 children.
Oh. Has everybody gone down for a nap?
Yes, Edison is down for a nap. Isla is upstairs doing making a new board game. So we'll see how that turns out. Now, if I turn my thing like this, what happens?
You look like you're standing on the wall.
All right. Well, better on the wall than off the wall. How's that? No, that's not great either. Can you see me?
You look great. Especially when you make that face.
Is that better? Is that better?
Yeah, that's all I got.
Hey, I'm wearing a, okay, hold on a second.
Are you wearing what I'm wearing? Oh
Is that Cold Mountain? That's perfection!
That is so waka waka.
It really is. I gotta say, one of the highlights of my career was pretending to be dead with you singing that aria into my face. It was just unreal. It was amazing. The problem was you had to think I was dead, and I had tears rolling down my face. Like, well, he's not dead because he's crying. It's very hard for me to play that he's dead because he's crying.
Oh, that was so fun.
And also here's another Cold Mountain memory. I had to play once, as you know, I had to play the fiddle and sing an aria, and it was in counterpoint, and I could, and it was a 5/4, and I couldn't always hear the beat, the 5 beats, and I couldn't always be looking straight at the conductor, and so it was easy to get off while I was fiddling, listening to the fiddle tune and singing, and you can't really see my feet, but if this was Isabel's foot, like she's listening to me play, going bam, 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 bam. And so I knew if I was getting off, I could just look at Isabel's feet and, be looking at, oh, bless you, Ada, for keeping the beat. Bless you, Ada, that sure is sweet.
We had such good memories of that show together, and just I think it's funny, the tears, but the laughs that we had, just trying to, also grapple the accents that we were all singing in.
Absolutely.
Yours was wild and amazing, and I could understand every word, and it was like, you know what I mean, though? It was so
totally
gnarly.
Yes, it was, and Jehana Morris, a masterclass in how to storytell. For me, it was, I forget who said this, but someone said that the job of an artist is to be clear, to be audible, and to be interesting. And I think all of us kind of went into that, like, and in Santa Fe outside, you have to sing, you have to put it you have to know how to sing to make it audible in that outdoor theater, but you got to make it clear and you got to make it interesting. So I went to very hills. I'm from the hills, so I was very thing from the hills. It was, but it was a total gas, and it was a really good ensemble feel. I like to say, am I talking too much? Am I talking too much?
Please, you are not talking. You are supposed to
talk. I like to say that when it all is said and done with my career, what I think I basically will have been will be. I feel like I'm sort of the Ringo Starr. Like, I like to go to casts and be the Ringo Starr because we have you and Fonz and Jehana Moore. We have like John and George and Paul, but someone's got to be back there keeping the beat too. Like, just gonna keep the beat, make sure everybody. But that cast was a whole big cast of John's and Paul's and Ringo's. Like, you're keeping the beat was being Ringo, and then you flip it on and be Paul to sing your aria and be, you know what I'm saying? I've really tortured this metaphor, but you get the point.
We took turns.
That's right.
That's right. It's so true. I just remember like laughing so hard, like watching Emily like dive underneath those planks to get the chicken.
So great. Uh-huh.
or like just like the funny little one-liners that everybody seemed to have like one of them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it just
Meg Marino, I want to hug him till I grunt.
right. Right. That's right. Oh my God, I forgot about that. I mean, and everybody has this great, and there was something so very real about it. You know, it was very much like a play and very much like theater, you know,
Yes,
and I think that's why we all also enjoyed it so much.
I buy that. And in
But
fact, I'm glad you said that. It was, but it also to me showed why we do, like why opera is, because it's kind of it was a non-linear story. And it's a story a lot about vertical development. Like, it's not just about I went to the store and I bought some eggs. It's about standing in a moment. It's about and like no one can stand on stage like Nathan and just be broken. And like to sit there with the chorus around him. I'm getting chills thinking about it. And that's what the opera can be. It's these moments of verticality where we get deeper and deeper into where we are, and the music makes the story, the music, especially Jennifer's orchestration, tells that story in a way that resonates differently from just going, and then Inman went here, and then Ada said this, and this happened. And it was so suited for the opera medium, I think.
yeah, I agree. I think it was great. I mean, we loved it, right? We all did. We just had such a good time. Oh, do you remember that little video you, Emily, and I made? Remember, I was like, we need to do one of those little like fast. I gotta find it, and then
You gotta find that.
I have to find it. And when I hopefully I'll find it. Fingers crossed. And then when I post this to YouTube, I'll like attach it to the video because it's really funny. I decided to make this little video. So Kevin had this hat, and
Jed Clampett.
yeah, exactly. And since Emily and I spent like every waking hour together going ta 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 ta, trying to get our rhythms right together in our duets and throughout the whole piece, we made this little funny video of like the three of us running around in a circle, sort of like old school fast film image, except we didn't have anybody else to help us. It was just the three of us. So do you remember we were like, okay, you're gonna go around, and when you come around, take the camera from me.
The camera.
It was like run, grab the camera, run, grab the camera.
My heavens.
It was really good. It was really good.
It worked.
We had a lot of fun. Emily and I were climbing trees at the Opera House in Santa Fe, getting apricots, random things, you know.
How great is that? Getting into character, yeah. Yeah. So good.
I know the answer to this, and I don't know how many other people do. First of all, I think we met before Cold Mountain. We met, when did we meet? I was thinking about this before you had logged in.
So I feel like Tempest. Which was 2012 maybe?
Yeah.
And is it possible? So what I remember is, I remember Tempest, obviously. I also remember you came to La Paire de Colle, but when you were doing that amazing production of Dialogues.
Oh, right.
Right.
So that was 6 years ago. So
was that
maybe Tempest was then.
Tempest before that? Gotcha.
But you know what though? I saw you do The Last Savage.
Oh, of course. Yes.
And that
so 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That was hilarious. That was so fun.
It was so subtle.
You and Anna Christie and Dan O'Coolidge.
That Gap production was a total hoot. And were you doing the Vivaldi at that point?
I think that was the summer that I was doing Griselda.
Griselda, yeah, that's right. Also a wild show. Yeah. It was so good.
Very weird, very strange piece.
It was,
but some really amazing arias.
Amazing arias and an amazing cast. And you can't it was Peter Sellers at his Peter Sellers, he's the Zianist. And with that cast, like for me, I bought in 100%. It was unreal to see you and, I don't remember off the top of my head, Meredith maybe, and Paul Groves maybe, and it's too long ago. Amanda maybe, I can't remember.
No, that was really good. Okay, so sorry. So we met a long time ago. But you had a whole other career before you were an opera singer.
That's the truth. That is the truth. I was an attorney for a while. In fact, 2011 was about when I came back from being an attorney. I sang for a little bit. I was at the jail yard back in what I call the dark days of jail yard when people like you weren't there. It wasn't spitting out Isabel's and Sasha's and Brenda's and Aaron's and Paul Appleby's. It was spitting out me.
Oh,
we were good though. Me and Jenny Rivera and Jason Ferrante.
Have you seen you?
Keith Ferris. But yeah, I went there, and then I sang for a little bit in New York City Opera, and then I'd always been interested in law. Like I actually, my first interest was law. I was pre-law in undergrad, and thought I spent a year abroad after my junior year in Vienna, and I was at the Staatsoper in Vienna, just at Stehplatz, just watching shows all the time. And I thought, you know what? This opera thing seems kind of cool. So when I got back to graduate, I applied to law school and to grad school. Ended up going to law school deferred and grad school didn't. So I ended up deferring law school for 6 years while I sang. Then I went to law school in New York. Then I went to practice for a little bit and then realized that this was nice, but I'd rather be singing.
I mean,
so that's it in a nutshell.
I think that's impressive. Do you still practice at all? Like, do you have your finger on the pulse of it? Like,
I don't have my finger on the pulse of it, but I'm still a member of the bar in New York, and Natalia, my wife, practices, and so we talk about things some. And in fact, I was just helping someone else. Someone last night called me to ask for a little help on a contract negotiation that's coming up. So like I try to keep a finger in it, but I'm not, if you don't, when they say, what do they say? Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what they say. That's the problem. What are they saying? What are they saying?
You lose the muscle, you don't practice.
That's right. No, and that's absolutely right. But I still, I'm still around it, and it's fun to talk to Natalia about it. And I will dive in every once in a while to try to figure something out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating. I know just even the simple things of like reading contracts. There's so much language in there that we're not taught to understand.
That's true. That's absolutely right.
And it's worth learning to understand it, right?
I agree. And I will say, I have found, now I have the luxury of having read a whole bunch because I went to because I studied it. But in my experience, you need to read a contract once and then you're going to be confused. But then you read it again. And by the certainly by the third time you read it, it sort of starts to make sense. And I advise anyone, I've worked a little bit for volunteer lawyers for the arts in New York, and I just advise anyone, just sit down with your contract and read it. And then then read it again. And if there's a word you don't understand, then look it up. Because at the end of the day, we're all lawyers aren't that smart. No offense to me and all my friends that are lawyers. We can understand these. We just have to read them, and it just takes reading it. And it's a pain because at first it doesn't make sense because we don't know what that word means. But then you read it again, you're like, oh, I get what they're trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. No, totally, 100%. I remember reading once many years ago, I had been asked for like a record contract actually, like with Sony, and it was one of those things where it was like very exciting and very flattering. And then my manager at the time told me to read the contract, and I read the contract, all like 50 pages of it, and I was like, my little red marker, like,
good, yeah.
And then I came back and I said, wait, why do we want to sign this contract?
Good for you.
Yes, I think,
exactly.
why I'm basically signing my rights away for the next
what am I signing away?
30 years of my life. And it's it was also going to be many conflicts of interest with the companies that I was going to be working for the next few years. And I was like, I can't sign something like this the way it is. And so I never did it.
That good for you. That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, it's like, who was I talking about that? Maybe Costello. Yeah, like, wait, you mean every time I have to sing Mikiyama, whatever his arias are, I can't, what's a tenor aria? Name a tenor aria.
Yeah,
every time I sing that,
but that could be a tenor aria. Mikiyama.
Yeah, sure. I'd pay to hear Steven sing that. Every time I sing Mikiyama no Mimi, I have to pay Sony. I'm making that up. But yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
No, but it just made it very complicated. And there's something, I think there are a lot of those rules and laws and things that we I think take for granted the fact that we don't know, but we actually kind of, figure that stuff out on our own. So I always thought that was really fascinating. And I think it's super smart. Also, it's just always fun when you meet people, in your business where this is already such a dedicated business. We have to practice so much. You have to be really good at your craft. And to have already another, I think, high level, dedicated to study career under your belt is a lot. I think that's really, I think it's impressive.
You're very kind.
I know, I've always thought it was impressive, and I still think it's impressive. So I want to tell you, so two people who you know very well had written into the little questions for Kevin.
Oh boy.
So one was Christian Van Horn, and he goes, "Why are you the funniest person I've ever met?" Which I will second that because I agree with him. You know me. I told you from like day one. I was like, "You're like John Cleese really important.
Oh, it's highest praise.
I remember seeing you again
Savage.
in Savage, and then again when you did La Pericole, and oh my, I can't, I will, if I start thinking about it, I'm gonna start laughing, and then we're done.
It's so whack.
We're done for the conversation because I won't be able to talk anymore. But it was just so funny.
It
Oh my God.
it was whack.
I'm gonna start crying now. It was so funny. Okay, and Aaron sends, "I love you, Kevin.
I love you back."
And Sean says, "Oh, I miss him. Say, ask him how Billy Budd was last summer."
Oh, wow. Billy Budd, what an experience. It was unreal. That was at, in Central City with that really beautiful Jewel Box Theater where you don't have to, you don't have to work at all. You just live in the moment and tell your story. It was Josh Hopkins as Billy Budd. So, that's okay. And to be able to, especially on that stage, like singing, Claggart's torn, like he's talking about broken man, and he's to be able just to stand still. I basically stood still for all of, oh beauty, oh handsomeness, goodness, just to be able to stand still and tell your story of how broken you are and how much self-loathing you have, and to be able to show in your face without really even moving the moment you decide that Billy Budd will be the death of you, and you probably of him as well. To be able to play all of that, it was a total gas. It was a total gas.
That's an incredible piece. I mean, that is one of those. I don't even have the right words to kind of describe it, but if anybody hasn't seen Billy Budd, I would suggest going to listen to it at least, because and even if you're just listening to start to the choral moments,
the choral moments are unreal.
Oof.
Yeah, and it's a claustrophobic feel because everyone's trapped on this boat. And again, in that space, I mean, it's already claustrophobic. We have, I don't remember how many people on stage singing that. There's one point where everyone in the chorus sings the same note on this crescendo, and it just gets louder and louder and louder, and you're enveloped in sound, and you can't not feel it in your cry space, and you cannot feel it in your chest where your heart is, and it's just the vibrations. And that's, by the way, I think what we're missing now. Like, we miss sharing breath, and we miss sharing vibrations, and I miss feeling Isabel's voice when it sings I feel it in my mask, and I feel it like that's part of what we're missing right now, I feel like.
I agree 100%. I miss that so very much, that sense of just feeling, that's it. It's just feeling the vibration, feeling the energy up close.
Yep.
Yes. It's healing.
Sharing it.
We know how healing it is. We've always known, but I think that it's even more present now because of the lack of it, right?
Agreed. That's absolutely right. Yeah. Gene Shear, who did, as you know, the libretto for Cold Mountain, he did the libretto for another opera, for a lot of other operas, but one I'm thinking of is Everest, which is the story about this ill-fated ascent up the hill in '96, as recounted in other and End of Thin Air, stuff like that. And I don't think I'm telling stories out of school. I think he'll let me tell the story. There are two of the widows of people who died on the mountain were thinking about coming to the world premiere in Dallas. And Gene had been talking to them, and they thought, one of them said, I can't do it. It's like, it's too painful, and it's too many, there's been too much, people have been taking advantage of the story. People have been profiting on the story, and I just can't deal with all of that, so I can't go. And then one of the widows, I believe it was Fisher's widow, came anyway. And at the end of it, she called the other one, and it must have been Rob's widow. And she told her, you should have been there, because for the first time since it happened, I felt a sense of closure. I felt a sense of healing. And I felt like I could just be in that moment. And it really gave me, it was a balm. And Gene tells that story and says, that's why we tell stories with music, because there is a healing power to telling stories with music.
Oh, yeah. That makes me feel very good. I mean, obviously heartbroken for them. And
right.
It's good that she had that feeling.
and could articulate it too, right? Like it's like, oh, wait a minute, because it's one thing it's one thing to be in the moment and another to be able to go, wait a minute, this is therapeutic. But yeah,
it is. Oh, so good. It's
yeah.
so good. I was gonna ask you something, and I got caught up.
I'd rather you not.
I got caught up in how wonderful that story was about it. Oh, I was gonna ask you one question, and then I was gonna say to everybody that you agreed to sing. Is that still okay?
It is still okay. So it's not all right. So here's the deal. I'm not, it's I have had the good fortune of late to be able to work with the studio artists in Atlanta, doing a little acting and stuff. And what was it? I think it's from King and I that Anna says, I don't remember how it goes, but it's a true and ancient saying. No, it's a very ancient saying, but a true and honest thought that if you become a teacher by your pupils, you'll be taught.
Yes.
And one of the guys I work with, Jonathan Bryan, he always gets mad at me for being too apologetic and for saying, oh, I don't know, maybe this won't help, or maybe I shouldn't do this. So I'm going to try to play the piano and try to sing and try not to apologize for how bad it's going to be.
The whole point, I think, of these days now is like we are humans, all of us, who make mistakes, right? When we get on stage, I was talking to Maxim Mironov couple weeks ago, all right?
Uh-huh.
I know. And he
From
said,
him to this, I'm sorry.
We were laughing because he had said, he says, like, of course, when we go on stage, we sing well. That's what we do. That's what we're trained for. We practice, and then we go out and we sing. He's like, but all of us, we're in the practice room, and we're singing those notes, and they're amazing. And then we go on stage, and they're like, like just shy of like amazing. And I said to him, if only everybody knew what it sounded like when we were in the shower. Like, just we're so good when we're not in front of people.
It's true. Well, did you? Hi. Have I missed anything? Tell me what I missed. Did I miss anything good? So, wait, there was this chair exercise that we used to do at Juilliard with Ted Altshuler, where you just put a chair in the middle of the room and everyone sits around and the woman of the class stands up, goes to the chair, and improvs with it, and it can be anything but a chair. So, it can be a compact, or it can be a comb, or it could be a lawnmower, or a briefcase, or anything. And it's super easy to do when you're sitting on the outside looking at the chair and the person with the chair. And you're like, why don't they just turn it into a teddy bear? But when you're with the chair, nothing comes. You're like, it's a chair. It's a chair that you sit on. No, I can't handle it. You're like, there's just something about standing up in front of people and doing it, no matter how much you've worked on it, how much you thought about it, that it's a different energy. So, oh gosh, this is probably a terrible idea. I'm
so excited. I love this. No, have fun. Oh my God, I love it.
I will try to have fun.
Share. And
I don't want people to look at my face though. Let's see, can I do it like that? One of my favorite song composers, is a guy named Richard Hundley. Richard passed a couple years ago. He wrote "Come Ready and See Me." He wrote "Waterbird." Some of the best American art song of the past 30 years. And one of my favorite songs that he wrote is called "Arise My Love." It's from the text is from the Song of Solomon. This particular text that I'm getting ready to say right now is not in the song. Hopefully you'll understand what I say when I sing it. But among the things that are in this text from Song of Solomon are, the winter, the rain has stopped. Let's come sing our song. Let's go sing our song, basically. And so I thought it might be appropriate to try to sing that song with an eye on, when everything is righted and people can share space again. It'll be nice to be able to get together and make some music and tell some stories together. Oh gosh, this is going to be terrible. I'm so sorry. I'm so embarrassed already.
Stop it.
Let me see if I can get this set up right so I don't so it doesn't fall. Oh my goodness, I am a disaster. How about there? Oh, look at that. You can kind of see me. Hi.
This is
and it's right on the soundboard. You might not hear anything but my terrible piano playing. I apologize if you do. No, look at that. Hi, it's Richard Hundley. I hope I don't screw this up. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Oh, my of a rock, in the covert of a steep place. Sorry. Let me see thy countenance. Let me hear thy voice. For sweet is thy voice, and thy countenance is comely. 9. Going right. Arise, my love, my fair one. Yeah, you get the point.
That's beautiful, though. That's
Isn't
such
it a great song?
Beautiful song. You know, you sound so good.
Oh, thank you.
So good. It's just talk about. This is exactly what you were talking about. Missing people's resonance. You know,
Yeah.
and you know, everybody. We know each other's voices so well, right? And not even just you and me, but all of us. You know, we know each other's voices so well, especially if we've spent any time singing straight at each other's face. Because it becomes sort of a part of your DNA structure to feel the vibrations of somebody else's voice.
Yes, absolutely.
And I get used to it. You know, I get used, like
Yes.
Mountain, I got used to listening to the sound, the way your voice vibrates. And not just in my ear, but in like my chest, you know? And then to hear it again, it brings back visceral memories of all the times we've sung together. And so it has this amazing sort of like transporting quality.
Yes.
Anyway, thank you.
I love that. It adds, it speaks to why opera singing is eternal, because it resonates with us, and it does. I love that. I love that you say that, because it does conjure up when you hear someone's voice that has vibrated in you, that you felt before. It conjures up this whole rainbow of emotions, and it's like that's my new thing, is like, you know, in wine you have the terroir, like the terroir of the voice, just everything that comes into it reminds you of that person's story. I love that, Isabel. And it's, I like to say, well, even that, like, so that was obviously very imperfect, but as I tell my students, it's your imperfections that move me. It's your scars that tell a story. And that's why we have to try to be vulnerable. We have to try to open up and show, we have to fall in love with the idea of revealing ourselves. And sometimes revealing ourselves means falling off the edge of the stage, but sometimes revealing ourselves means balancing right there on the edge of the stage in that moment of just beautiful float and stace and like of magic. And that's why we do it.
100%. Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Okay, so 2 last questions. I'll tell them both to you, so that way you can kind of decide how you want to answer them. They're different. One is going to go back to the kind of the conversation of comedy that I always like to have with you, because I feel that there are people who have sort of innate, built into their DNA, ability for physical comedy. And maybe that's, I've always felt that that's you, right? That you are one of these people that has this sort of just this natural ability to move their body in such a way that it's just, it tells the story, and it is also so very funny, right? There's a natural timing, there's a natural comedic timing to that. So the question around that is really like, have you always had this? Have you felt, I mean, obviously as a professional, you hone your own skills. And what are some of the things that you think about in shows, especially the comedic shows, that drive your comedy? What are some of the standards you have for yourself, that kind of a thing? And then the last question, which we can get to later, is if you could quarantine yourself with 3 of the characters you have played, who would they be?
Oh my goodness, that's awesome. 3 that I've played. Okay, I'll think about that.
Who's watching? She always comes up with this. She has this as her question, and it's
a great question. That's a great question.
That's it. The floor is yours.
I have to think about that. So, like, you mean hang out with them, or like
Like quarantined with them.
uh-huh. Well, both. I both those questions come to the same thing. Like the guys, I don't always try to curry sympathy for my characters when I try to make them funny. I would say about so like they probably not that fun. None of them are very fun to hang out with. Um, about the comedy, I've done. Well, so I'm the youngest of five, and all my siblings before me are very outstanding. They're much more outstanding than I am. And in a pretty loud family where you have, I was once called by a Sunday school teacher a black sheep, which I thought was super nice of him. When you're the black, like I was always seeking attention. And the way I got attention in my family was through being funny. And it's a loud family. And so a lot of that was physical comedy. Just sort of, figuring out, do anything you can do that's a little unexpected. That's comedy, right? You set up an expectation and then you break the expectation. And and how you make something funny is you have to do something clearly so the audience has an expectation, and then you break it and you do something different. And ideally it's funny, or even if it's not funny, you get a groan. As Marcel Marceau said, even if someone groans, if all they're doing is groaning, they're tensing their body and releasing it. And that release is a victory for the comedian. That's what you're going for. Somebody go, and that's what you have done your job. And so a lot of my comedy is pretty broad. I throw it against the wall to see if it sticks. And over the course of time, you find out what sticks and what doesn't. It's a little bit like they say the great jazzers, they don't do more than 10 to 15% of improv in any time. They just tap into what they've already done. Right. I will say, I forget who said it. All these people say things and I forget who says it, but there was someone, famous actor, who said, if you're standing still on stage, you're telling the audience what I'm doing now is more important than what I could be doing. And there's a lot of merit, I think, to stillness and standing still, even in comedy, because if you allow yourself to be still and have something pop out of it, it's that surprise that really makes it sparkle. Talking about Tempest, so you're, the first time I ever worked with Alec was in Tempest. And Alec and I do a fair amount of comedy together. And I truly think he's the funniest guy in opera. But we have a very different approach to comedy. Like his comedy is I wouldn't say it's cerebral because he's not that smart, he's a tenor, but you get the point. If it could be cerebral, if you had a cerebellum, it would be cerebral. And it's so sharp and it's so witty and it's so fast and verbally so fast. And there's nothing more fun for me to play with him on stage because he can go pop, 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 and then I can do some sort of thing, right. Response, some sort of physical response, and it really is, it builds on itself, if that makes any sense.
It's perfect. I love that.
Mm-hmm. No, three people, three characters. All right. You know who I like, and I really like Papageno, just as a person. I think he's a nice dude. He's an honest dude. He's human. He can't quite be quiet, but that's okay. I couldn't be quiet either. He seems big-hearted.
People around during quarantine, entertaining and kind and.
Yeah. So I think he'd be a nice one to have around. All right. Who else do we have? Someone like oh man, I play so many tools. Like no one wants Bartolo around. No one wants Mustafa around.
I was just watching a clip the other night of your Bartolo of the dentist.
Yeah, it was so great.
So funny.
You came to that show. I think you were at the show. I thought am I right in thinking that I might have?
You're right. I saw that one too.
I think you might have come backstage after. I think I remember you being there.
I did see it. Yeah, because it was Jennifer singing Rosina.
That's right.
Yeah, and I saw yes.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let me go back in time. No, not him. No, not Bartolo, and not the other Bartolo, and not Mustafa. I don't know, Mustafa. No, does Mustafa come around? Who comes around at the end to be a nice dude?
Well, I mean, your character in Cold Mountain,
I would love. You know what? He's a good dude. And I think you heard what you said. What was great about one of the great things about your aria is it was just Like, how can you not see? Well, how can you not see what's in front of you? How can you not love that daughter of yours? And as someone who loves my daughter, who you know, it's like it's very meaningful. I'll go with Strawbread. I'll absolutely go with Strawbread.
Yeah,
That's
maybe
awesome.
like Strawbird, like once you stop drinking.
That's right. Strawbread once he came to, like in the last scene, the very last scene where he's with his grandbabies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah. I can do Strawbread. I like that. And I could do, you know, who I've met, and I've developed a nice relationship is Beck Weathers from Everest. And Beck, man, talk about he's the guy that I played in Everest. He's a pathologist in Dallas. He lost both his hands, lost his nose on the mountain, but he came back and he's still working, and he is as entertaining as a speaker if you ever met, and he's in touch with his story, and he's in touch with his own vulnerability. And I think he's an inspiration. So how about that? I'm kind of copping out by going with 2 world premieres because they're a little less in the standard rep, but they should be. Cold Mountain should be standard rep. Everest should be standard rep.
I think so. I think the thing is that those are stories that are timeless stories. You know, I think there's such a well, this is a whole other conversation, right? But you know, contemporary pieces in general, right? We always ask, well, why does this stick and why does that not stick? And I think a lot of it has to do with the staying power of the story, and if it continues to teach you something through the generations, right?
Absolutely.
The story resonates at least, you know, throughout the generations, even if the time periods are changing and
absolutely
customs are changing. But so yeah, I think, and those are great stories, and
yep. Well, I mean, the story of Inman, like, so you go like, so I'm going to go off or just for a sec. You know, what we miss now, right now, is what everyone, not opera singers, but everyone is missing, is being able to touch, is being able to come, and that feeling of really wanting to connect. That's where opera is at its best. That's where we started with Orpheus. Orpheus just wanted to turn around and see Eurydice. He just wanted to connect with her and go on, and that's what Inman was doing. He wanted to get home, and he wanted to connect with Ada as the story of just trying to get together and longing to get together. And this sort of, that's that whole thing I just played is all about, I won't be able to do it because I'm not really good at piano, but it's all about those suspensions. You know, everything is just, oh, where's that chord? What chord is that? It's just like this. That longing, we're living in that chord right now. And we're just longing finally to get to. And when we do get to, it's going to be amazing.
It is. Oh, it is. I love it. You're the best. Thank you so much for chatting.
Thank you. What an honor. I'm sorry for my technical difficulties. Boo.
Why?
Boo.
Come on. Everybody has technical difficulties.
Boo.
We're all having technical difficulties, even when we're not on our little gadgets.
Fair enough. Thank you. This has been delightful.
You're great. I'm so happy to see your face. Please give everybody a big hug and all my love. And the doorbell just rang, so that's kind of perfect timing.
Good timing. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sending you a gigantic hug.
Likewise. All right. Thank you, Isabel. Love you. Bye, everyone.